Hi, thank you for joining. My name is Crystal Olivaria and I'm the Career Conversationalist. Today we're here to discuss, is the corporate world right for your child? Discover the power available to change lives. Avoid disappointment. You get what you negotiate, not what you are worth. Learn the secret skill to thriving, not taught in college. With great power comes great responsibility. And this is especially true in the corporate world. Corporations are run by people who make decisions every day that affect millions of people's lives. It's not just large money decisions that are being made. The level of professionalism of people in the corporate world affect the quality of life for millions of people. Low levels of professionalism lead to strain and stress, while high levels of professionalism lead to levels of high customer satisfaction and profit. The corporate world is filled with people from the low to the high end of the professional spectrum. Working with people from varying levels can be extremely challenging as well as very rewarding. Your child's ability to work with others will determine his or her level of ability to improve the quality of life for lots of people. Discover the power available to change lives. Never underestimate the power you have to change lives. The first job I had out of college, I accepted an offer for a job that was the lowest level of the corporate office. I happily accepted the job position because I knew I had my foot in the door. I was in this entry-level position for longer than I had anticipated, and I was eager to transfer laterally to another position to gain more experience. I remember having lunch with my lunch bunch group of friends from the corporate office. At the end of the office hour, or lunch hour, we were getting ready to go back to our cubicles. We talked about what projects we were working on for the rest of the day. I was asked what my plans were. My coworker anticipated me saying something like, "I'm going to spend the rest of the day cleaning out my desk." Instead, I said, "I'm going to send an email to let the store associates know that I'm leaving the office. I want them to be extra attentive in making sure they fill out their paperwork appropriately and following up on custom orders in a timely manner." My coworker said, "No, don't do that. You'll have associates coming out of the woodwork to ask you questions about their special orders. You will be inundated with emails and phone calls." While I respect my coworker, I decided not to follow her advice. I sent an email to the store associates as part of the good old-fashioned business etiquette. My coworker was right about one thing. I was inundated with emails and phone calls, but it was not from follow-up in regards to following up on customer special orders. Rather, store associates took the time to reach out and thank me, as well as to wish me the best in my new position. The store associates were happy that I had made a difference, and they wanted me to move up and advance quickly and gain the extra experience. I remember one store associate in particular calling me. She was so thankful that I was on top of it when it came to keeping on top of the paperwork. She told me that my ability to stay on top of the paperwork affected her income. The store associate explained that she makes a basic wage and makes a commission when she sells special order furniture. However, she does not receive the extra money until the furniture is delivered to the customer. The store associate would follow procedure and submit a special order forms to the corporate office. Prior to me being in this position and overseeing the special orders were processed and sent to the manufacturer in a timely manner, I was told that things used to slip through the cracks all the time. The store associate I would contact corporate a few weeks later to follow up on the special orders and find out that the estimated ship dates to her customers so she can contact them. It was then that the store associate would find out that many of the orders were never sent to the manufacturer, and they were sitting in a folder somewhere in the office, or the wrong things were ordered. When the store associate would call her customers to inform them that their furniture would not be ready for several more weeks, the customers would cancel their orders. I never thought of processing paperwork and doing my job well as affecting others and helping them to get paid for the work they do. Prior to that phone call, I saw myself as a paperwork shuffler. I simply handled the paperwork I was given, and I did it in a timely manner. I would have enjoyed processing paperwork much more if I would have associated processing each order as helping a store associate get paid for the work they did to assist their customers. In my corporate entry-level position, I had the power to affect people's lives and income, and I didn't even know it. I would have taken much more pride in my work and held my coworkers to a higher standard if I would have seen my work as a means to providing income stability for people who work hard in the stores to serve people like you and me. I learned that you do not need to be in a high position of power in order to have power. The way you conduct yourself is powerful, and you have the ability to positively affect the way you act, by the way you act. Avoid disappointment and get what you negotiate, not what you are worth. Are you raising your child to work hard and expect a promotion? I was raised this way. I thought that if I worked hard, then promotions would easily come my way. Early in my career, this seemed to be true. I transferred into a department and quickly made a difference to the bottom line and helped to make the department more profitable. The buyer was impressed, and he took me under his wing and started teaching me how to become a great buyer. When the buyer was planning a trip to the Midwest to a buying show, my boss thought the trip would be a great first buying trip for me. I was excited. I saw this as a promotion. This opportunity demonstrated a serious commitment to helping me advance my career, and I knew I would get promoted from assistant buyer to buyer in the near future. Unfortunately, the company I worked for ran into some financial uncertainty and was cutting expenses. I was informed that the company would no longer pay for assistant buyers to attend buying shows. I was very disappointed. I wanted to cry and burst into tears every time the topic came up. You can imagine the sorrow I felt when I would hear my boss on the phone with vendors saying things like, "Crystal will not be attending the buying show with me. The company made a new policy and they are not paying for assistant buyers to go on buying trip." Yeah, I know. This would have been such a great experience for her. At the time, I did not know my boss was working behind my back negotiating with vendors to sponsor my first buying trip. Each vendor would be responsible for sponsoring a portion of the trip. Different vendors would sponsor my hotel, meals, and flight. My flight was the largest expense and the most challenging to negotiate. One day, a few weeks after I was told that the company would not pay for me to attend a buying trip, my boss decided we needed to get out of the office. He said a vendor was in town and she wanted to take us to lunch, so we would sneak out of the office early and head to the mall for some secret mystery shopping. My boss wanted to check out the sales prices of other stores selling the same products as we sold. My boss wanted to see if vendors were providing other stores with more marketing support than us. For example, is there a gift with purchase that the vendor is supplying? After shopping, we had lunch with a vendor I had met prior, but I did not know very well. It was over lunch that I was told that my entire trip was being sponsored, and the vendor we were having lunch with was paying for my largest expense, the flight. I was moved to tears because my boss believed in me and negotiated on my behalf without me even knowing it. Over the next several days, I was feeling super grateful, but I couldn't help but wonder, why did the vendor I knew the least be willing to sponsor the largest expense? I thought about it a lot, and I overheard my boss on the phone with vendors proudly announcing that I would be accompanying him on his next buying trip back east to Chicago. My boss bragged about how the hardest part of negotiating was getting someone to pony up and pay for my flight. However, he was triumphant in securing a sponsor. All the vendors wanted to know who ponied up and paid the expense. My boss proudly told them, and our vendor reps were surprised when they found out who sponsored me. The vendor we did the least business with was willing to sponsor the highest expense. When my boss was done with his phone calls, I asked him, "Why did she sponsor me?" My boss replied, "Because I'm a good negotiator," and then he chuckled. I was satisfied with my boss's answer, so I turned back to the computer to start working. My boss then said, "She was impressed with you at our vendor meeting. You deserve this opportunity. You earned it. I simply helped you get financing." I thought about the meeting and I realized that I was undervaluing the value I have to offer. As part of the process, to help me become a buyer, the buyer asked vendors to educate me about their products during our vendor meetings. My boss wanted me to be able to identify quality-made products from lesser quality products. I had sat through several vendor meetings and listened attentively. Then one day I thought, this is such a great product information. I wonder if there's a way I can include some of this in our ads. The job position I inherited was running almost all of the ads with the same product description for every product we advertised. The general description used on all products was large assortment and sizes. It didn't matter whether or not we were advertising loungewear or dress shirts. What is the point of having an area to describe products if each and every one of them all say the same thing? We might have 9 products on a page and the descriptions for various products are all the same. Creating product descriptions required work and effort in preparing ads. My boss was fine with me doing the work, but he did not like me adding to his pile of things to do by involving him in my new mission to create better ads. So I took on the additional workload, mostly by myself. I included my boss's good ideas for product descriptions when they were offered. Otherwise, I was the one scouting for ideas to describe our products in enticing ways. During our vendor meeting with the slipper rep, I heard her say things like, "There's memory foam. They are lined with terry fabric to help feet dry, and they have durable soles so they can handle pavement, so there's no need to put shoes on when going to the garage or walking the dog." I thought to myself, why don't I write this down? What she is saying, and I can include it in next year's advertising. So I took out a piece of paper and started writing down everything the vendor said. My boss was annoyed because the meeting slowed down when I asked the vendor to repeat what she said, and I wrote it down. My boss said, "You don't need to write everything down. There's not going to be a quiz later." I said, "I know, but I don't want to forget what she said." I had a hard time creating descriptions for holiday advertising. If I write down what she says about her products and I keep the notes, then I will not have the same troubles next year. My boss whined, "Yeah, but I'm a big guy and I get hungry. We aren't going to finish this meeting in time for me to go to lunch on time if you write down everything the vendor says." I half-jokingly whined back, "Yeah, but I don't know if the vendor will be willing to write down information about her products to help me do my job well and sell more of her goods during the busy holiday season." My boss said in his gruff voice, "Why don't you ask her?" So I turned to the vendor, and in my sweetest voice, I said, "Would you mind writing down some key points about what makes your product so great so I can use the verbiage to accurately describe the benefits of your products for next year's advertising?" I would do it myself, but I don't want my boss to whine and become a grouch because he is hungry and he wants to get out this meeting on time. My boss sheepishly said, "You didn't have to say it like that, even though you're being accurate." I turned to look at my boss directly in the eyes, and there was an awkward moment of silence. Then we both burst into laughter at the same time. After we could control ourselves, I turned to the vendor and she said, "Not a problem. I will write down stuff for you. Don't worry about it." And then she winked at me. Reflecting back on the experience, I realized that the vendor was probably willing to sponsor me because I demonstrated value first. I had a crystal clear plan as to how I was going to help the vendor make more money next year by selling more of her products. The vendor liked the plan and was impressed by the way I carried myself. While I never got to go on the buying trip because the company I worked for filed for bankruptcy, I never forgot what I learned from the experience. The situation had changed, and it was no longer a win-win situation for the vendors to sponsor my trip. I was grateful for the experience because it taught me that negotiation isn't about smooth talking your way to what you want. Negotiating is about demonstrating value and then leveraging that value to get what you want. While I might not always be able to confidently negotiate for what I want, I know there are people who will negotiate on my behalf as long as I provide value. While negotiations don't always work out, I learned it is better to negotiate for what you want than to wait around and expect to be given what you are worth. Here's a picture of a page of Gottschalk's holiday advertisement that demonstrates progress in creating better product descriptions. For example, the Izod flannel and knit lounge pants does not have the description of large assortment and sizes. Instead, the copy reads, "Elastic and drawstring waist with pockets. Choose from our huge assortment of patterns." Learn the secret skill to thriving not taught in college. Our modern-day school system is set up to help graduates fill entry-level job positions by learning the basics. The topic of advancing and thriving in one's career is not usually mentioned or taught in our current educational system. Therefore, your child may start his or her career without forward thinking about what is the next step. Your child probably has good ideas that are profitable and can contribute to our economy. Your child probably does not understand the value he or she has to offer, and therefore your child does not understand his or her economic self-worth potential. The reason value is hard to understand is because value is like beauty. Have you ever heard the saying, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder"? The saying means that not everyone agrees to what is beautiful. What is beautiful to one person may not be beautiful to another. Value is similar. What is valuable to one person may not be valuable to another person. Value is in the eye of the beholder. Or another way of saying it is, one person's trash is another person's treasure. One person will not find something valuable while another person will find the same thing or idea valuable. Another challenge is that when people agree that something is valuable, they often disagree about how valuable it is. This means that the idea your child has may be more valuable to one person than to another. If your child talks to a person who does not value his or her idea, then your child may feel like it's not a very good idea. When in reality, your child spent a lot of time talking to someone who was not a good fit and could not implement the idea profitably. Your child may become frustrated because your child knows that he or she has a good idea and sees the idea as more valuable than the person he or she is talking to. Have you ever wondered why several people can hear one idea and they all have different opinions about how valuable it is? To explain how this is possible, let's continue to discuss the story shared earlier. The idea was to take the wording from a vendor rep used to describe her products and use the description of merchandise and holiday advertisements as a way to entice customers to come into the stores and shop. By using the same or similar wording as the vendor used to describe her products would ensure that the description in the holiday advertisements are helpful to customers. The vendor could write down description of her products on one page to create a cheat sheet. The cheat sheet could then easily be referenced when working on holiday advertising. The cheat sheet is valuable because it can help to make an ad more persuasive by having language that entices customers to come in and shop. The cheat sheet becomes more valuable when it is used repeatedly and referenced to create multiple ads for the whole holiday season as opposed to one advertisement. The value of the cheat sheet is easy to understand because it makes it easier to prepare paperwork for submitting advertising. The vendor happily is willing to take the time to create the cheat sheet because she knows it will help drive sales by making her products more desirable from being showcased in a more prominent way. The value is relatively easy to calculate because you can estimate a percentage increase in sales. It is easy to calculate the dollar value associated with the idea. When value is easily established, it is easy to get everyone on board to move forward with the project. Implementing ideas like the cheat sheet will have far-reaching, long-lasting, positive, profitable effects. Now, I have a challenge for you. Can you think of a way to take the same exact idea and make it more valuable? If you are like most people, you will struggle to answer this question. You were probably raised to believe that an object or an idea has value or it does not. Or the value is set at a fixed price. In a highly consumer-driven economy, most of the prices are set and there's little negotiating room for paying a different price. Therefore, we tend to see an object or an idea as being worth a specific price or within a relatively tight price range, depending upon factors like supply and demand and how good you are at negotiating. Since this is a challenge, using the example mentioned, is there another way to make the same idea worth more exponentially? Yes, there is one word answer to explain how to turn an idea from valuable to more valuable exponentially. The word is leverage. Leverage is often described as a tool. The ancient Greek mathematician, physicist, engineer, inventor, and astronomer Archimedes is well known for his statement, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." This means that a tool used properly can create an outrageous outcome that would normally not have been possible otherwise. Your child is likely to have leverage available as a tool, but your child does not know how to use it. Having a tool and not knowing how to use it is like the saying, "A person who does not read is no better off than a person who cannot read." Having a tool and not knowing how to use it is not going to improve your child's ability to be able to advance economically. True education is about learning how to use a tool. Unfortunately, our current school system does not teach your child how to use leverage as a tool. Your child may not even know what this tool is or even be aware that he or she has access to it. Leverage is an important tool that is used to increase abundance. Since people are monetarily compensated for the economic value they provide to society, there is of great interest to provide the most value with the least amount of work. I say the least amount of work because you do not want your child to spend his or her whole life being a slave to wage. Instead, you want your child to have time available to spend with loved ones. Therefore, your child needs to provide a lot of value within a relatively short time, so your child has time and the option of how to spend that remaining amount of time as he or she pleases. So now that you know that leverage is a tool and why it is important to help your child create abundance so he or she is not a slave to wage, now it is time to discuss how to use this tool properly. In the example of the cheat sheet, value is based on outcome. The outcome of my job is made easier and takes less time to complete holiday advertising paperwork, and the vendor can expect to have more goods sold, so everyone is happy. To take things to the next level, a little more skill and knowledge is needed to leverage the cheat sheet to create more abundance. This is going to get a little technical, but stay with me. Let's say the buying office wants better terms with the vendor. There's only so much negotiating that can be done on price, since price is predominantly fixed and is associated with producing goods. There's only so much volume discount that can be given and make economic sense. However, terms can be negotiated and there's economic value associated with them. In this case, the buyer may want net 90-day terms instead of net 60-day terms. The buyer may want to run more ads and have the vendor pay for 50% of the cost. The buyer may be willing to expand the assortment of goods offered in the store. Adding a few more fashion-forward styles may help drive sales, even though there is inherent risk in not selling more fashion-forward styles. The buyer may negotiate to have the vendor take the goods back that do not sell well in our stores. The vendor can resell the goods to another retailer who has clients that are a better fit for the fashion-forward styles. The buyer may negotiate to have the goods that don't sell well given back to the vendor rather than deeply discounting the goods to drive sales. Preventing as much discounting as possible keeps the dollar per square foot high. Basically, there are a lot of ways to negotiate terms. The vendor may not be motivated to negotiate because it creates more work for them. The vendor needs a motivating factor to negotiate. This is where we go back to the topic of increasing value of the cheat sheet exponentially. Since the cheat sheet is already created, what would happen if the rep distributed the cheat sheet to every client she had? This means that instead of the vendor rep having one account that is driving sales smartly, the vendor is handing each of her accounts a tool that they can easily use to drive sales as well. The people in these accounts will likely be happy that the vendor is giving them a tool to make their business easier to manage and more profitable. The vendor rep looks like a hero to her clients. This means that there is a lot of nectar or sweetness in suggesting that the vendor rep share the cheat sheet with each of her accounts. The law of reciprocity at work creates sweet deals. Do you understand how making a suggestion to the vendor to create a cheat sheet and share it with all of her accounts can create exponential, far-reaching, long-lasting, positive, profitable effects for the vendor? Do you see how helping a vendor become more profitable and become a hero to her clients can provide leverage to want to negotiate terms? I would not worry too much about helping other companies that are normally considered competitors sell more goods. A store chain in the East Coast isn't a competitor with a store chain in the West Coast in the physical realm that customers prefer to shop in, as opposed to online. It is also easier to differentiate an assortment in the West Coast from another store chain in the same territory by having better terms with the vendor, to offer a larger assortment of styles and split the cost of advertising more frequently. If a fashion-forward style does not sell well in our store, we can then have the vendor take the goods back and resell them to our competitors, who may actually sell the goods since their clientele is not the exact same as ours. To accomplish this, we would receive the fashion styles early in the holiday season and get a good read to see if they sell well within the designated short time frame. If the goods do not sell well, then we have the goods returned to the vendor and make room for new styles. If our competitors sell styles we know did not sell well in our stores, then we know competitors are not taking market share away from us. Instead, we are setting up a higher chain of command where our store receives the newest fashion-forward styles first, and we take the least amount of risk, which makes us more profitable and the go-to store for the latest fashion. Our competitors benefit from this arrangement because the vendor may offer them a discounted price for the fashion-forward goods. So our competitor may feel like they're getting good deals on fashion goods they may have been more hesitant to buy. This creates a win-win-win deal for ourselves, the vendor, and their client, our competitor. In other words, a rising tide raises all ships. Now let's say that the vendor rep is one of the few reps that the manufacturer employs. Let's say that the vendor rep shares the cheat sheet with all of her accounts and gets acknowledgement from her boss for being a superstar sales rep. If the rep has an abundant mindset, she will be willing to share the cheat sheet with her boss and have her boss distribute the cheat sheet to the other vendor reps to use and give to their clients. The law of reciprocity at work creates sweet deals. Do you understand how making a suggestion to the vendor to share the cheat sheet with her boss to share with other vendor reps can create exponentially far-reaching, long-lasting, positive, profitable effects for the vendor? Do you see how helping a vendor become more profitable and a hero to her clients makes a vendor extremely happy to do business with our company? By helping a vendor become extremely profitable, do you better understand why a vendor falls in love with their client and is enthusiastic to take them out to lunch, to send them a wide assortment of cookies, candies, and liquor for the holidays? Do you better understand how the law of reciprocity creates sweet deals? Now, let's say you want to continue to negotiate with the vendor to better secure your company's position as a leader. If a vendor is happy taking you out to lunch and excited to service your account, how open do you think the vendor rep will be to further suggestions about how the two of you can make more money together? Let's say the buying office really knows and understands who their core customers are. The buyer may know that certain colors, styles, and fabrics appeal more to their core customers than others. Generally, the vendor presents an assortment of goods, and the buyer selects goods within that assortment that are a good match for his or her clientele. However, if the vendor does not offer something that the buyer thinks will sell very well, then the buyer can make suggestions. The buyer can pledge to purchase a certain amount of goods if the vendor creates products specifically for the buyer's core customers. Terms can be negotiated for a test run, and if it's wildly successful, the buyer can have either an ongoing or a limited time exclusivity to sell new styles that the vendor may want to offer to his or her other accounts. By negotiating to have the goods produced, the buyer can offer his or her clientele styles that they will likely love and will not be able to find anywhere else. While this scenario did not happen, it is highly possible it could have happened. My boss has a background in developing private label brands. My boss can leverage his knowledge about developing brands and developing products that are a good fit for the store's client. I have a background in fashion design and understand the process from concept to consumer. So, as an assistant, my boss and I are a great team. We worked and played well together, and we leveraged each other's strengths. From my experience, I learned that knowing how to properly use leverage as a tool creates a profitable vision that can easily come into fruition. Leverage is a tool that is used to make an idea more profitable over time. The longer a lever is, the more exponentially profitable an idea can become. In order to be able to provide more value, it is important to learn how to use leverage as a tool and master the skills of handling longer and longer levers. There are lots of tales about the corporate world, and most of what we hear in the media is about the corruptness and greed. However, corporations also provide a powerful means to be a force of good. A position in a corporate office allows your child to have a powerful impact and positively affecting the lives of others in simple ways that makes a huge difference. As your child progresses forward in his or her career, your child can avoid disappointment by understanding that he or she gets what he or she negotiates for and not what he or she is worth. Your child can advance quickly when your child understands that leverage is a tool to be mastered, and handling leverage is the secret skill to thriving that is not taught in school. Now that you better understand the world of corporations, you are in a better position to help your child decide if the corporate world is right for your child. Go share this blog post with your child to help him or her better understand the corporate world. Working in the corporate office is very different than the entry-level sales position your child may have while working part-time while in school. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, then I would highly encourage you to go to the site, grabyourfreegift.com/CrystalO, CrystALO, and you will be added to my mailing list. Every week I send out an email with a blog post, as well as an inspirational quote and occasional bonuses. And I encourage you to go ahead and create a folder in your email account titled !Career Conversationalist. Therefore, you can easily save all your emails and you can easily access them again. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to our paths crossing again soon. Take care.